I began with a simple drawing and a strip of white masking tape stretched in a straight line across the part of the painting where the beach meets the background hills and mountains. Colors I'm using are cobalt blue, and to make it a little less intense, I put in some manganese blue, a little lighter blue. The technique I'm going to use is wet wash on a paper. I'm not pre-dampening the paper. I'm just going to make around the white clouds kind of rough by scratching my brush around them, rather than trying to make soft edges with wet into wet, which is kind of difficult because there isn't just the right amount of dampness and your brush isn't the right amount of pigment. You could have your wash run all over the white clouds, losing them. So I'm getting a little more control this way. And I decided to divide the blue and the white portion of the sky into approximately 1/4 blue and 3/4 white cloud. You don't want to have it evenly divided. That would be kind of boring. The clouds in the lower part of the sky are smaller and flatter as they recede into the distance. I'll also paint them with cool colors, so you get the feeling of distance, going back in space. Using this catalyst brush by Princeton to remove some of the pigment that I used over one of the little light clouds. Brush is very good at softening edges and now for the shadows on the clouds, I'm getting out some quinacridone gold and Payne's gray. I have a clean, damp brush, and I'm softening the edges of the shadows with. Using controls on this video editing app, I've sped up my painting process, which you probably noticed. tilting the board a little bit to let the pigment blend together without using my brush strokes to push it around. My table usually is at a slight angle, as it is now, very much to allow water to run down a little bit. This area, I'm trying to paint this cloud that I'm painting right now is actually in front of the one under it by making a stronger shadow that seems to overlap the second cloud. If you have a big thirsty brush, you can pick up a lot of pigment, softening edges, moving things around. And that's because there's quite a bit of water here to work on adjusting things. For these more distant clouds, closer to the horizon, I've added some blue, same blue from the sky, the same mixture of blues from the sky. And I think a little bit of Payne's gray. Really want to stress the impression that the big clouds overhead are closer to the viewer than the ones off in the distance lower down. So the big closer ones have more of a warm cast to their color. I've allowed the painting to dry, and I've got some Coppertone Gold and Nougat sap green and deep sap to paint the hills, closer hills, with soft transitions between the colors, the distance. You don't want too many sharp edges to give the feeling of distance. I'm using the blue mixture, more of a distant hills beyond these green ones, using a cool color to give them distance. But colors are strong. I'm using blue, but it's a strong, as a design element, these hills are very important. A large percentage of the painting is the cloud part. There needs something to compete with that. Be it a small area, it is a color. Too much detail, though. I'm using one of the pointed, small, low Cornell brushes. I think it's a to make the trees in the distance, green trees. Decided to go on the beach now after finishing up fishing. I think I have a few details to take care of on the land part, the hills. A strip of tape, so there's a straight edge. You'll see if you were looking at the hills in the distance. The color I'm using for the ocean is Perylene green. It's kind of a bluish green. Thought that would suggest salt water. And I'm leaving the white gaps as the breaking waves. sand color that I'm using now is the blue mixture mixed with some of the yellow or New Gamboge and quinacridone gold mix. This warm sandy color. Then I'm just suggesting the reflection in the water that's standing on the beach, kind of just a film of water. Sometimes the tide leaves. I'm suggesting the reflections from overhead, white and blue. That is dry that I'm painting on. It was dry. No, I thought this was a strong shadow, probably cast by a cloud. It shows how flat it is, by the way it is pretty straight. Now it's time for a few people to be placed on the beach. I'm only using a dark color. It's just something I had on my palette. It's probably Payne's Gray and uh, one of the blue or the blue mix. Because you can't really see many colors at that distance. Okay, now here's where I run into trouble. This figure will be way out of proportion. He'll be way too large. So we'll show that, sort of. Make it better anyway. Oh, away from the camera, I blotted out that too large figure. So while that's drying, I'm just putting a little more blue into the sky. I thought it might be too pale. Boy, wiping up some splashes. After looking at the painting for a while, I decided that rusty orange mountain was too colorful, too eye-catching. I'll put a wash of blue over it to tone it down. And the sand area of the beach is dry enough to put a layer on and try to hide the area where I sponged out the figure. I can paint right over the other figures because they're dry. Waiting for that new layer to dry, I'll water a little bit. The farthest beach. Left that figure out now. You wouldn't know anything there. I said to put it back in at the right portion this time. paper is perfectly dry now, and I'm going to draw his figures, proportion, no details, his body, legs, so that I don't make him too big. And I don't want him too dark either. After I finished videoing this painting process, it enlarged those small figures that are closer to the ocean. Made them a little bit taller.